$15 million, from research to prototyping and testing, that's what it can end up costing to bring a new cruiser motorcycle model to the market? If you believe it, even after spending this much money on a new motorcycle model, some companies just discard that model and stop producing it. In today's video, we'll be looking at 7 of these cruiser bikes that are no longer produced and the real reason why the company stopped producing them. Let's start with that. Oh, it growled like a hungry tiger. You hear that? Yeah, that's a super smooth torque that makes you grin every time you twist the throttle. Admittedly, the Rune wasn't for racing, but it had no problem showing off some power. And it did all this without a single hiccup. Well, that's if you're not considering the fact that it didn't come with a tachometer. So if you were having too much fun revving it up, the rev limiter would just cut you off without warning. I know what you're thinking. This bike's pretty good, I'm sold already. But is it comfortable to ride? Oh, it had that down too. The big, wide seat was practically a sofa on wheels, and even tall riders had plenty of room. Sure, the pegs weren't as far down as some cruiser fans might like, but honestly, they kept things comfortable for longer rides. The suspension at the front also does pretty well in soaking up bumps, but the suspension on the rear isn't as good. Before you get too lost in this fairy tale of a bike, let me remind you that Honda has ruined the sweet moments riders could have enjoyed with the bike. But why did they do that? Well, at $25,500, the Rune was not cheap at all. But it will interest you to note that even at that price, Honda was losing over $75,000 for every single Rune that was produced. So right from the start, making a profit or mass production wasn't really the purpose of the Rune. It was just an avenue for Honda to flex muscle and show to the world, this is what I can do. Can you beat that? Throughout its production span, Honda only made around 1,200 of these beauties. So for those who got their hands on one, congratulations on winning the lottery. And for you watching this video, you can't get one. It's not your fault. Production stopped too early. Now next on the list is the Victory Octane. This bike was so good it almost made Harley nervous. Well, almost. When Polaris released this beast in 2017, they aimed straight at the heart of the muscle cruiser segment. The bike packed a 1200cc liquid-cooled engine and cranked out 104 horsepower. At 548 pounds, we're not even sure whether this bike is a street fighter or a cruiser. But what we're sure of is that with this bike, Polaris didn't just aim for riders who wanted to look cool. They targeted those who wanted to feel cool, smash asphalt, tear through corners, and break land speed records. And of course, the bike did all that. In case you didn't know, that bad boy set a Guinness World Record for the longest motorcycle burnout, over 2 miles of tire shredding glory. Sure, the bike wasn't designed for taking grandma to church, it was built for speed and mayhem. But as good as it was, the Octane lived a heartbreakingly short life. Just as Polaris launched this firecracker, they decided to stop producing the Victory motorcycles entirely. Why? Well, those bikes didn't sell like hotcakes. Victory was innovative, reliable, and had glowing customer satisfaction ratings, but it lacked one thing: heritage. Also, big cruisers were falling out of style after the 2008 financial crash, and Polaris made a hard choice: bet big on another line of bikes and close Victory down. For Octane fans, that decision stings. The bike was a good bargain, but life had to go on regardless. The next bike on this list is a classic in the world of cruiser motorcycles, but its production was stopped in 2014. It's none other than the Yamaha Roadstar. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you've ever ridden one or just seen one glide by, you know it's hard to ignore. The bike has an unmistakable big bad V-twin engine and a timeless cruiser style. If you're a true bike lover, whenever you set your eyes on it, you can't help but imagine leaving everything you're doing at that moment and taking that bad boy for a ride. Earlier models of this bike had a 1602cc air-cooled 48-degree pushrod V-twin that produced 62.6 horsepower at 4,000 RPM. But by 2004, Yamaha had upped its game and offered customers a mind-blowing 1670cc engine. It also offered sleek upgrades like tubeless aluminum wheels and a thinner drive belt. And for those who like bling, the S package has all the chrome a person can desire. For those who prefer the dark and mysterious, there's the Midnight Edition, which blacks out everything. It also has a seat as low as 710 millimeters and plush suspension, which makes it super comfortable to ride. At 332 kilograms dry, it feels like a heavy beast, but once you got it rolling, it felt surprisingly agile for its size. When you also consider the bike's dual-disc front brakes and single-disc rear, you know you've got all the stopping power you need, so you can cruise with confidence. Overall, this bike seemed like a dream come true for many riders, but of course, no bike is perfect. The Roadstar wasn't exactly built for speed demons. It was more about soaking in the journey than getting there first. And while the carburetor models were reliable, they could be a little thirsty for fuel. Next on today's list is the Honda CTX 1300. Designed as a hybrid of a cruiser and a sport touring bike, the Honda CTX 1300 packs a punch with its 1261cc V4 engine. Borrowing DNA from the ST1300 Sport Tourer, it was retuned to focus on low-end and mid-range torque. Its styling was a mix of bold and unconventional, some would say polarizing. The short windscreen kept the breeze manageable, and for those who preferred the full touring effect, Honda offered an optional taller screen. The low seat height made it welcoming for riders of all sizes, though taller folks occasionally found themselves bumping their knees into the engine heads. But this bike wasn't just about looks and power. It came packed with tech. Dual speakers and Bluetooth connectivity let you blast tunes while cruising, and the optional deluxe trim sweetened the deal with self-canceling turn signals, traction control, and anti-lock braking. There were also storage compartments, with one thoughtfully equipped with a USB port perfect for charging your phone or playing music from a flash drive. However, the sound quality from the speakers started to wane at highway speeds, and you'd likely switch to a helmet Bluetooth setup for better audio clarity. Despite these features, the CTX 1300 was a bit of an odd duck. It didn't fully belong in any specific category. Too sporty to be a cruiser, too cruiser-like to compete with traditional tourers. The long wheelbase and hefty 338-kilogram weight made tight maneuvers a bit challenging, though it remained stable on highways. This identity crisis didn't help its sales, and Honda's pricing strategy didn't help either. For the price tag, riders expected more versatility, or at least a clearer purpose. Ultimately, Honda pulled the plug on the CTX 1300 just a couple of years after its 2014 launch. The market didn't quite know what to do with it, and its quirky appeal wasn't enough to justify its continued production. If the Honda CTX 1300 was a hefty 338-kilogram bike, then this next one was definitely a very lightweight bike. The Suzuki Boulevard S40 was popularly called the Baby Boulevard, and that's because it ticked a lot of boxes for beginners and fans of simple, reliable bikes. With its lightweight design, it became a favorite for riders who wanted a manageable, low-maintenance cruiser without sacrificing that die-hard cruiser look. The heart of this machine was the 652cc single-cylinder air-cooled engine that packed just enough punch to handle highways comfortably while keeping things simple for newer riders. It doesn't have all the designer high-tech frills or over-the-top performance. It's more like that reliable pair of black jeans you can pick up anytime you have to be on the go. So why did people love the S40? Well, first up, its weight, or better put, its lack of weight. Tipping the scales at just 173 kilograms wet, it was feather light compared to most cruisers in the 650cc range. This made it incredibly easy to maneuver and pick up, even for smaller riders or anyone worried about dropping their bike. And let's not forget that low seat height, just 700 millimeters, which meant shorter riders, or those who are more down to earth as I like to call them, could plant both feet on the ground without feeling like they needed a stepladder. The best drive was another plus. It was low maintenance and kept rides smooth and quiet. But as with all things, the S40 wasn't perfect. That single-cylinder engine gave it the nickname Thumper, and not in a cute way either. When speeds got high, it could make things a little bumpy. The bike also lacked a fuel gauge, and that's not exactly ideal unless you enjoy guessing games with your tank. And then there was the issue of wind. The bike didn't have a windshield, so highway rides felt like an audition for a tornado survival documentary. But for those who didn't mind a bit of ruggedness, these quirks were just part of the experience. Last on today's list of 7 cruiser motorcycles that are no longer produced is the Harley-Davidson Street 750. When you think of the Harley-Davidson Street 750, just think of that friend who just joined the gym, leaner, more approachable, and trying really hard to impress without scaring anyone off. This bike is Harley-Davidson's handshake to first-time riders. It offered the brand's essence at a fraction of the price, and it didn't have the intimidating bulk and noise that might otherwise send newbies running for a Vespa. The liquid-cooled Revolution X engine is smooth, responsive, and a little too polite to be mistaken for its rowdier cousins. But don't knock it. This thing delivers power steadily from 2,000 to 8,000 RPM, which means you have nothing to fear when you want to zip through city streets or make dramatic exits from awkward parties. Throw your leg over the Street 750 and the first thing you'll notice is the seat. At 27.9 inches off the ground, it's so low you'll feel like you're sitting on a stool at your favorite dive bar. The bike's lightweight build and neutral steering make it easy to maneuver, even for beginners. But after 100 miles, that comfy-looking seat reveals its secret. It's only as supportive as a flaky Tinder date. Your butt will beg for mercy long before the gas tank runs dry. The brakes are also gentle and may not exactly provide all the support you need to bring the bike to a halt, so you'll have to rely on skill or luck. Now let's talk aesthetics. Sleek, minimalist, and clearly designed to look cool without breaking the bank. But you'll see where they cut the budget. Stamped steel brackets for foot controls, visible cables. Yeah, they know you want cheap bikes, and they'll give you just that. But your date might not be too impressed if you pull up on that. Basically, the Harley-Davidson Street 750 met its end because riders outgrew it too quickly. While it was the perfect entry-level bike with its lightweight design, forgiving handling, and confidence-boosting performance, it didn't have much to offer beyond the basics. Many riders found themselves wanting more power and versatility after just a few months. So very quickly, Harley realized that a bike so easily outpaced by its riders' growth couldn't sustain long-term loyalty or sales, and so they had to discontinue it. Hey, thanks for joining us as we cruise down the road looking at 7 of the baddest bikes no longer produced. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. And don't forget to drop a comment. See you in the next one.